So, hi, Tyler. Can you please introduce yourself and tell me what you do at Zygo?
Sure. I'm Tyler Steele. I'm the product manager for laser interferometer products at Zygo. That's everything laser interferometer product related, from marketing to applications to um, things like material sourcing and interfacing with engineering and R&D and product development.
Great. So, can you tell us a bit about what Zygo does and what kind of markets they touch?
Yep. So Zygo is pretty well known for the interferometer products, and I'm showing one here behind me over my right shoulder. Um, so interferometers are used to measure typically used to measure the surface of things like optics, like optical elements, like this, like Edmund makes many of. So we measure the surface. The instruments measure the surface of optics while they're being produced, as a feedback for the polishing process to understand where polishing needs to happen more or less. But they're also used to measure things like the imaging performance of, for instance, things like a camera lens for wavefront performance, or MTF. Um, and the markets that use these kind of instruments vary pretty widely, from things like consumer cameras that we're probably all very familiar with, to things you might not be familiar with, like the photolithography systems that are used to make the ever smaller microchips that go into things like cell phones and laptops, all the way to things like laser systems and night vision instruments that are used in the defense industry.
So, pretty much everyone in optics uses
Pretty much anyone that's
interferometers.
using optics would use an interferometer. Yeah,
Right.
we often call it the caliper of the optics industry. It's a very common
That's a great
instrument.
term for it. I mean, and
We should
obviously,
I should briefly,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I'll just briefly point out the other side of the instruments business. I have another Zygo instrument here, which is a optical surface profiler, and this is a microscope instrument, but it's also an interferometer, and it's used to measure surfaces on a much smaller scale. So things like, again, optics, which may need to be very, very smooth. You would use something like this to measure the surface of an optic for roughness. But also things like machine surfaces, or even disk drives, the hard disk drives that go into a laptop, or the many disk drives that are used for cloud computing these days. So a much broader scale of application and a much wider market segment that we would use these in. And I'm showing here a demo of a measurement of the surface of a quarter that we made this morning. So you can see that the types of parts that are measured with an optical profiler like this are much broader. In fact, the U.S. Mint actually has some of our instruments that are used to measure
Very cool.
the die, the very precise die that are used to make some of the collector coins that come out of the mint.
That's cool. I'm like actually a coin collector, so that's like actually
Oh,
really
really? That's
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great because there's a lot of different industries that optics touches, and it sounds like Zygo is a part of the process of that, and so it's great to see that you're supporting all sorts of different markets, from consumer electronics to
Indeed.
healthcare to manufacturing and material processing and things like that. Fabulous.
Indeed. Yeah.
So Zygo, you said, is headquartered in Connecticut. What brought Zygo to Tucson?
Well, Zygo's been in Tucson for some time. As you know, Tucson is a hub for optics, thanks in large part to the university and the many companies that have started here and have grown here for some time. So Zygo's had a presence in Tucson for a long time, and it's been important to have a presence here and to be engaged with the optics community here in Tucson. And I'm from Tucson. I was born here, and I had the opportunity to go to the university and went to the College of Optical Sciences. And as I said, after college, I moved to Connecticut and worked from the headquarters there, but I had the opportunity to move back in 2016, and I've been here ever since.
So you're here for both optics and because Tucson is just fantastic. So that's what
And
I'm
because
hearing.
it's pretty awesome. Once you've lived on the East Coast, you can really only appreciate it truly after you've lived somewhere like Connecticut.
We also have a lot of East Coast transplants, so I can I can
Yeah,
understand that.
indeed.
So
Indeed.
how do you see the work that Zygo does affecting the future of technology?
Well, the optics industry in general, the future is bright. We see applications for optics in all kinds of interesting new areas and new markets. Things like the sensors that enable autonomous driving cars. Those are many of those are driven by optics. There's really interesting ways that the digital world can be displayed onto a view of the real world through things like augmented reality glasses, to things that are further out, like exoplanet exploration, deep space telescope research, things like that. Zygo supports all of these kinds of fields, and many more. And many of those are optics driven that we're involved in. So the future is bright, as we would say with the International Day of Light.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of the future is optics going around, so that is
Indeed.
it's definitely great. I mean, those are the only questions I had. Is there anything else you want to tell us about Zygo or interferometry or?
Interferometry is cool. If you're not familiar with it, if you're maybe not in the optics industry, there's lots of videos on our website and on YouTube that sort of explain how it works, and you can see some of the other interesting applications used to measure optics and how we're engaged with the optics industry.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Tyler. I really appreciate your time.